What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Football Diary. And if this is your first time ever coming into one of our newly kind of rebranded live shows, what we do, we go live for typically about an hour from around 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we just talk about whatever's going on in the NFL. We do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then what we do is we take all the segments that we talk about, we clip them up so that you don't have to, if you don't want to watch the full video, because I know a lot of people just want to watch videos on their favorite players, watch videos on their favorite teams and things that they actually care about. You can just click on those videos, and whether they're 3 minutes long or 15 minutes long, it's all segmented out so that you can just click on whatever you want to watch. Now, we are still working on setting up the podcast account. We'll get that probably set up by the end of the week so that if you guys want to listen to this, you can do that. But we're just getting into the live show. And on Tuesdays, we try and talk about kind of things that happen over the weekend or things like that. Whereas Thursdays, we typically do a little bit more of previews and things like that. But overall, the next couple days, they'll be coming out with a lot of the segment videos and things like that. But Matt, what do you want to start off talking about in the NFL right now? There's plenty of things we could talk about, but what are you thinking?
I feel like we should just start with MVP. I think there's a couple guys. Obviously, I know someone that you're going to want to talk about, but I don't know. I think that's one of the big things now that we're, I guess, around the midseason mark, a little past now. I don't know. It's kind of weird this year.
Well, Matt, I think it's funny that you say that you find it weird this year because it's actually an even week season.
Oh,
it's 18 true. Weeks, so half is 9 weeks through.
I guess I'm thinking of the games.
We're actually halfway through the season. So MVP is absolutely a discussion. Now, I think what we should do, we will let's come up with all the players, not analyze any of them. Let's think of the players that we think are in the conversation, and then we'll talk about them each individually and say their case and talk about it that way. So let's go through it. Who do you think is in the MVP conversation? Let's just throw the names out there. I'm going to start off with Brady, Lamar, Kyler. Do you think Matthew Stafford's in that mix?
I mean, you got to put him in there because it's not like a super one guy ran away with it.
Yeah, okay. Stafford, is Dak in there?
No,
not Dak. What about Josh
You already
Allen?
Missed a game. Allen is. Yeah, I think Allen's the favorite right now.
Okay.
I think Allen and Brady are the two favorites.
Okay.
Now, last week didn't help Allen.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that you think could be in that MVP conversation right now that you think that we should talk about and make the case for?
The guy that unfortunately went down in injury is Derrick Henry, but he would have made it very interesting because he was legit in it, I think.
I like how we say MVP. Rare. They beat the Rams without Derrick Henry.
That's true.
So maybe he wasn't the MVP.
But also, they don't really know what to expect with a team without Derrick. Yeah. I thought they were going to throw the ball a lot more. They kind of didn't, even though Adrian Peterson wasn't very effective. They won defensively, though. The Titans won because of mistakes, which hurts the Stafford case. And he's one of the favorites. So maybe it just would have helped Derrick Henry.
Yeah, so... All right, so let's look at it. Let's start off with Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady, I believe, is what most people have as their favorite. I typically see him in the top two when people do their rankings. So let's talk about Brady. Tom Brady's case for the MVP this season. Obviously, he's doing amazing throwing the football. I believe he's on pace to set the NFL record for most passing yards in a single season. Now, obviously, asterisk with this season with all the most and highest, all those types of things, because there is the extra game, but on pace for a ridiculous amount of yards. He's got 25 plus touchdowns. He's slinging that rock, and the Buccaneers are sitting at 6-2, winning the NFC South. I mean, overall, what's the main case for Tom Brady? Is it just the numbers?
Well, it's the numbers. I do think coming off of a Super Bowl win helps, even though I know it's not this season, but it's the thought process of he's been so dominant. That's the last game you saw of the previous year. So I think it just kind of gives you momentum coming into the year. And then for him, I mean, you're 25 touchdowns, 5 picks, 6-2, potentially going to win the entire NFC and probably be the Super Bowl favorite right now. I would say they are. I think that it's just, that's why there's so much success. And the stats are great too. Now you can also look at his situation and go, well, yeah, he has a great situation. You can't really take anything away from Brady though right now. So there's literally nothing negative going on. I think that's why he's probably atop it. Even though I have him here at second. So interesting.
Yeah, for me, when I look at Tom Brady and kind of his case, it's like obviously the numbers are amazing. Like he's playing great football, and that you can't take away from that. It's just something that I have to look at is like the supporting cast that he has around him, because there are games where Brady doesn't have to do anything. There have been games where Leonard Fournette just dominates. And there have been games where like it's just not as necessary for him to win. And I think his supporting cast has been tremendous. I don't think a lot of people were expecting their running game to be nearly as effective as it was. Like I think people were expecting it to be like last year, but Leonard Fournette has continued playoff Lenny into the regular season this year, and I think that like is just adding to this attack. And obviously, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, probably the best wide receiver group in the NFL. I have them a little bit over Dallas, but I think they're a clear 1 and 2. And also, Rob Gronkowski hasn't played the whole year; he's missed some time. But Rob Gronkowski this year has been, I would probably say, a top 5 tight end when he's played. He has looked incredible. Last year, he did not look amazing. He had some good plays, but it seems like the rust is gone, and he's no longer the best tight end in the NFL that he once was. But he looks really, really good when he's playing with Tom Brady. So, like overall, just that supporting cast, and obviously the offensive line is a stout offensive line. Tristan Wirfs, Matt Skura. I mean, those are two of the best at their position. So, like, it's just something that you have to look at it. It's just like, yes, Brady's playing amazing, but he's not the only one playing amazing. And when I look at MVP, like that's something to pay attention to. They're not the number one team in the NFC. I think that's kind of holding them back right now. They did lose to the Rams. They did lose a terrible game to the Saints that they probably shouldn't have lost. But overall, like I mean, Brady's definitely a good pick. I can't fault anybody that has Brady as their MVP. Um, and the narrative's kind of going with him. I mean, Tom Brady's going to be talked about by the media because he's Tom Brady, and that's going to help you win that MVP. But is there anything else you want to add on to Brady?
No, I think that's pretty good. I mean, he's definitely one of the favorites. I don't know if he's my favorite for the reasons you said. Like, and it just kind of depends on how do you pick your MVP? What is it? The numbers and everything back him up, I think. So I think he will win, but I don't think he's the guy that's performed the best at the quarterback position because it is a quarterback award. I mean, it's definitely become that. I think there's a couple other guys that have like their team has exceeded more because of their individual play.
Yeah.
And that's why I think there's some other guys I probably like more, but I would expect Brady to win at this point. I do. Like, I think he'll actually take home the award, which is more important in this discussion.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next quarterback because obviously, unfortunately, this is a quarterback award and Derrick Henry is injured. So the only chance of Derrick Henry winning that award went out the window. But let's talk about Josh Allen next. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, really good so far this season. Obviously, this week, us talking about Josh Allen in the MVP conversation may seem weird to some people. People may be thinking that we're talking about the Jaguars, Josh Allen, because unfortunate loss for the Buffalo Bills. But that's the thing is like when we have these discussions, you can't be a prisoner of the moment. You can't look at the loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars and say, oh no, Josh Allen can't win MVP because he had a poor game against the Jaguars. Everybody loses games. That tends to happen in the NFL. Matt, what's the case for Josh Allen winning the MVP this year?
I do think that it's not. I think he's kind of like started to slow down a little bit. He was my pick coming into the year, so I had very high expectations for Josh Allen. I still think that they're probably the favorite in the AFC. Not saying that super confidently. I think there's other teams to mention for sure, but I would still probably have them atop that list. Horrible loss to the Jags. That's a given. You lost 6-9. That's horrible. And Josh Allen was not even the best Josh Allen that day. That was the best part I think about that game. So yeah, right now it might hurt. Maybe this is when you go and you make the bet for Josh Allen because his odds slip if you're someone that really believes in him. I think his case is that, like we talked about Brady, I think he's going to finish as the 1 seed in the AFC. I think that they could potentially be, in this year really, really hot, really get going. The offense is clicking. He has good pieces around him. I think he has a guy in Stephon Diggs who, like, last year he did come onto the scene, but I think he's probably been a little underrated throughout the entirety of his career. Dawson Knox, he's young. People don't really know about him. He's had a great start to the season. Zach Moss is a good running back. I like him a little bit more than Singletary. I think and Singletary's stepped up the last, I think, couple weeks a little bit more. At least I've seen him make more plays lately. But early on in the year, Zach Moss especially was making a ton of plays. So I think he has a lot of good pieces around him. Great coaching staff. I think he's just a good player too. I think he's a great player. So I think he's going to put up those numbers. But it is a little bit harder to say that right now just because of all of the success, I think, for Brady individually and that offense. So right now, I think he's probably one of the top 3 guys. But I don't know if he's the favorite right now.
Yeah, for me, when I look at Josh Allen, I think he probably has a better case this year than last year in terms of what could be said at the end of the year. Because last year, I think one of the main reasons why he didn't win the award, because everyone looks at it and they're like, what was different from the year before that? And everyone says, there's a man named Stephon Diggs there now. And Diggs was like the best receiver of the year because Devontae Adams ended up missing games. So he, leading the league in receiving and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, Stephon Diggs is balling. This year, Stephon Diggs isn't that offense like he was last year. Now, Stephon Diggs is still a great player, very underrated, I think. But he's utilizing everybody. Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Matt, you brought up Zach Moss, Dawson Knox. Like, these guys are all getting involved. And I think that's helping Josh Allen more because it's not nearly as dependent on Stephon Diggs as it has been last year. So when you look at that, and I think they do end up playing some tough teams. They beat the Chiefs, and I think everyone looks at that and they're like, oh yeah, the Chiefs, they're kind of bad. The teams that the Chiefs have lost to are very good football teams. They lost to the Ravens, 2-loss team. They lost to the Chargers, 3-loss team. They lost to the Bills, 2-loss team. They lost to, I'm sorry, I believe they're a 3-loss team now. They lost to the Titans, 2-loss team, number 1 team in the AFC. Like, that's something where at the end of the year, the Chiefs may only have 4 losses or 5 losses. And you look back at that game and be like, remember when Josh Allen torched the Chiefs in that big time, prime time football game? Like, those are the things that, like, in the moment, it may not seem huge. But when we're looking back at the season and like the big games that they had and the teams that they were against, Josh Allen puts up big performances against really good teams. People didn't watch this Jags game. People didn't watch week 1 against the Steelers. Like, those are the poor performances that this team offensively has had, and they're going to be negated by all the great performances that he has. So he definitely still has a chance, and he has a better chance, I think, than last year just because he isn't utilizing Stephon Diggs nearly as much as he did last year, and so that's allowing everybody to recognize Josh Allen, because when you're looking at the NFL and you see, oh, wow, look at that, Josh Allen leading the league in passing or whatever. Oh, but Stephon Diggs is also leading the league in receiving, so it's not as impressive. When you see just one guy balling out and what the other guy may seem like he's struggling, even though I don't think Stephon Diggs is struggling, he's just less of a focal point, that shows how important Josh Allen is because he's getting everybody involved, and he's really leading that team. So Josh Allen definitely has a great case for the MVP. Let's get into the next guy. I know you're a big fan of him. Let's get into Kyler Murray.
Well, this is kind of a weird week to talk about Kyler Murray, considering that Colt McCoy just had a win and had a excellent performance. Unfortunately, you guys can see my my banner behind me, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of Kyler. I think he's a great player. I don't know if he's in my top 3 right now. He's definitely banged up. Now Hopkins is hurt too. But the thing is, the big way that he wins it, he's going to put up crazy numbers. He's a great player. He's I think he is still an underrated quarterback in the NFL. I have him higher than most people do. But if they would end up with the 1 seed, I think there's a very good chance. Like, I think that's how he wins it. If he has the 1 seed, and they could right now. They have a great record. If he comes back next week, they have a chance to keep busting out wins. So I don't know. I think he has one of the better chances. I'd probably put him at 4, but like, he definitely has a chance. That's the thing about this year's award, is like so many guys are in the mix because we're seeing so many great quarterback performances.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. So is Kyler Murray going to be a guy that people look at and look at the roster that's around him? Because even though we've talked about it before, it's not an amazing roster. Like, it's a good roster. They've got a lot of great players on that team, but there also is a lot of holes. But because of the high name recognition of their roster, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, Chandler Jones, even now they have Zach Ertz, who, like, AJ Green, Zach Ertz, not the players that they used to be. JJ Watt, I believe, is out for the season, but Chandler Jones on defense, Isaiah Simmons on defense, even though he's not an amazing player by any means, big high profile name. Budda Baker, great player. So, like, do you think that he gets hurt by him having these really high profile names next to him, even though he's still performing with, Hopkins is out this week, it's Christian Kirk, it's Rondale Moore. Like, do you think that he gets hurt a little bit? I don't think he gets hurt nearly as much as like Brady does with playing with Evans and AB and Chris Godwin. But how much does the rest of that team factor in with Kyler Murray and looking at the MVP award? Because I know a lot of people love DeAndre Hopkins, think he's the best receiver in the NFL. I don't think he is, but obviously a great player, a great wide receiver, easily top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So, like, what do you think about the team, and how does this team help or hurt his case for the MVP?
Oh, it helps him so much. And like you said, the name recognition of some of those players, AJ Green, Zach Ertz, I think those are that's great examples. James Conner as well. He leads the league in touchdowns right now. So got to credit James Conner himself. But also, like, you look at Zach Ertz, AJ Green, and you have DeAndre Hopkins, you're like, he has 3 superstars. If you're not, like, if you're more of a little bit of a common fan, like, you're not, like, you haven't really been, like, watching, like, some of these guys and, like, recognizing their decline. And it's not like they're bad players or anything. AJ Green did have a bad moment in the Packers game, but, like, he's had a great year this year. Not prime AJ Green. Same thing with Ertz. Ertz, I think, has actually had a better year than he's had in his last couple. I remember, it was either last year or the year before, where it was like, man, like, is Ertz done? And he's definitely not showing that he's not done. It seems like he's going to play for at least a couple more years. I mean, definitely had like a second win to his career, which is awesome for both of them. And we'll see how long that kind of lasts for them. But no, I mean, the offense is about Kyler. Kyler makes it happen. The amount of times I don't think they have a good offensive line. I think it's a little better than years past, but the amount of times that he has to escape and do something just insane, and that's how they win the game, because of him, because of their prolific offense and him really, like, making the magic happen there. He's one of the quarterbacks that I think makes their offense, like, tick. That's what I call it. Like, you just make it tick, you make it work more than any other player in the league. So he's not more, but he's one of the guys that does it, like, at such a higher rate. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that he should be credited, but it's kind of hard when you see those names around him.
Yeah, and something that I always think about with guys like Kyler Murray, we'll talk about Lamar Jackson in a second. Go back to college. You look at the Heisman Award in college football, and something that's always brought up when guys are playing in the middle of the season, they say that's the Heisman moment, right? They make a great play. In the NFL, same thing. People don't say, like, oh, wow, that's the MVP moment. But there's MVP moments. How much do, like, these crazy plays and highlights that these guys make? Because let's be honest, Kyler's a flashy player. He makes a lot of really great plays. He's had a couple of plays already that are like him running around in the backfield, dodging like 3-4 tacklers, making some crazy throw to a receiver down the field, either scoring or not, or like getting the first down on a third down. Like, a lot of crazy plays like that. We don't see Brady doing that. Brady's dropping back and he's throwing great throws, but Kyler Murray's being very flashy and he's being put on the highlight films. He's in the top 10s for all these highlights, Sports Center and, top 10 plays of the week and all those things. How much does, like, being a flashy player, do you think that helps with the MVP? Because like guys like Stafford and Brady right now, they're putting up fantastic numbers, but Kyler Murray is just so, and Josh Allen, who we just talked about, another guy that makes a lot of flashy plays. Is being a flashy player, does that help you win the MVP? Or, like, I feel like it gives you a big boost for the MVP award.
I think a bigger thing is more about, like, when you have, like, your best performances, like the timing of them. If you go in, it's like, man, this guy had 4 of the greatest games ever, and he has a good season. His MVP like chances become a lot higher if all those games are on Sunday Night Football. Like and I think that's why, for instance, like when like young quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes comes into the league, and everyone goes like, okay, this guy's going to be a very, very special player. You see him on primetime all the time because of all of those moments that he has, and to kind of like build that legacy with that player. Like that's what the league tries to do. So you have to like earn those performances, and like unless you have like some, you're a young guy and your team's not that good, and you just have them on like Thursday Night Football or something. But you're going to see some of these Cardinals games, I think, flex in the prime time. I think that the Packers game probably hurts just their chances a little bit more. Like he didn't have his best game. But if he starts having those, I think it's more about the moments than like the highlights. The highlights don't hurt. Like definitely doesn't hurt when you have some sweet plays. But I think it's more about the timing of when you have your best performances of the year.
I think that's fair. I mean, that's just a massive thing is the way, like, honestly, MVP is kind of decided before the season starts, and who gets the good primetime games and things like that to actually build up those massive moments. I mean, we got to see Brady taking on Belichick and leading that game-winning drive in primetime football. We got to see Brady against the Cowboys in primetime football. Like we get to see a lot of these Josh Allen against the Chiefs in primetime football, putting on a monster performance. So I think that definitely plays a factor into it. Let's move on. Let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's MVP chances. Obviously, I know Lamar very well. I know you like Lamar. I know you watch a fair amount of Ravens games. I want you to go first, and then I'll build on to it. What are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson and the MVP right now?
So I think that he's a guy I'll say this first. I think he's a guy that's not going to get it. However, if I had to vote, I would vote for Lamar this year. I really would. I don't think the Ravens are that great of a team. And they are good because Lamar, this year especially, is the best 4-minute quarterback in the NFL. What we've seen almost routinely. I've done this like a couple weeks in a row now, I feel like. When there's been some close games, I've told this to my roommate who he doesn't follow football like I do. I go, hey, look, like it was the game. What was the Monday Night Football game? Was it the Colts?
Colts.
The Colts game and last week's game against the Vikings. Both times I said, hey, well, the Colts one was better because they were down by so much. I said, this is a vintage Lamar Jackson is going to score every single time to close out the game, and they're going to win in a crazy game. And he said, yeah. How much are they down by? And I forgot how much it was. And he said, yeah,
19.
not going to happen. I said, watch, I'm going to come back in here. I come back in like an hour and a half later and go, guess what? He's like, what? Ravens won. Lamar just had, like, they scored every single time in the game. He does that routinely. His ability, like, to push the ball downfield this year, maybe not like his ability, but how he does it is the best of his career. This is his best passing season. It's not even close. And you look around and go, well, what was that problem? Oh, that's right. You had Boykin and Snead as receivers for him. Now you have Bateman, Hollywood playing his best football, Mark Andrews, and Sammy Watkins. Looks a lot better. Looks a lot better when you give this dude some weapons. Their running game isn't even as good as it has been in years past. And it's kind of forced Lamar into playing hero ball almost every single week. And he steps up to the plate every single time. So if I had a vote, I'd go for him. The problem is the touchdown numbers aren't really there. And that's why he's not going to win it, I don't think. But I would vote for him.
Yeah. The touchdown numbers are something to look at. And it's just, like, if you look at it, Lamar Jackson right now is on pace for, I believe, 4,500 yards passing and 1,300 yards rushing, which would maybe be one of the most ridiculous seasons in the history of the NFL. I mean, considering, 1,000 yards rushing by a quarterback's been done 3 times, twice by Lamar Jackson. But, no quarterbacks were throwing for like 3,500 yards rushing for 1,000 yards. Lamar's on pace for 4,500. But the thing that that's so interesting about him is if the Ravens win, it is 100% because of Lamar Jackson. The Ravens haven't won a game this year where you look at it and you're not like, that was all Lamar Jackson. Even when he doesn't look like he statistically has a great game. For example, the Chargers game, Like, he didn't have an amazing game against the Chargers by any means. I think he threw 2 interceptions. But it was like he controlled that entire game. And not once has any person that watched the Ravens game come out and been like, well, that was a great game by the Ravens starting running back. Whether it's Latavius Murray or Le'Veon Bell or Devontae Freeman or Tyson Williams, there's never been a single game where people have gone out of it and said, that was a great game by that player. Even Mark Andrews. People don't come out of games and saying, like, after the Colts game, nobody came out and was like, what a game by Mark Andrews. He had like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and like totally carried that team on his back. Nobody said that.
No. I had so many people tell me, man, Mark Andrews is going insane tonight.
He's going insane. Yeah, but that's also because it's Monday Night Football and everybody's coming back at fantasy football. I know true. Because he led my fantasy football comeback. I was down by like 45 points going into that game. But it was all the talk was about Lamar Jackson. All the talk was about that. Even Hollywood Brown has had some monster weeks this year. But it's all Lamar Jackson. After the Kansas City Chiefs game comeback, it was like, wow. That was unbelievable what Lamar Jackson just did. And that happens weekly. Even against the Detroit Lions, a game in which Justin Tucker hits the NFL record 67-yard game-winning field goal. What happened on that drive? 4th and 19 backed up practically near his own end zone. Throws a monster throw to Sammy Watkins all the way down the field, which sets them up literally for the kick. Like, all of those games, they're all coming down to Lamar Jackson. Odafe Oweh against the Kansas City Chiefs punches the ball out on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's the game. Ravens just got to get 1 first down, then it's over. The Ravens don't get the first down in 3 plays. So then everybody in primetime football is looking at Lamar Jackson till John Harbaugh. No. Runs that QB power to the left side, gets that first down. Last week against the Minnesota Vikings, the Ravens down by 14 points, 24-10. And this is when people are starting to have to watch this game because the other games in the NFL were really not that great on Fox. So they started showing that game. But Lamar Jackson, 4th down and 9, they go for it. Then they get up to the goal line and they're coming out and John Harbaugh's kind of looking over it. You see Lamar Jackson look over the sideline? We're going for this. Throws it to his fullback, Patrick Ricard, for the touchdown. We come out of a lot of games from all these other quarterbacks and say, what a great game by that guy. Tennessee Titans game for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know how many people were like, oh my gosh, Kyler Murray. It was like Chandler Jones had like 5 sacks in the first half and he absolutely ruined the Tennessee Titans and they were able to win that game. Like, it was, there's games for every other player. And then when the Ravens lose, people blame Lamar. The Raiders lost. It was blamed on Lamar by a lot of people. I don't think it should have been blamed on Lamar. Lamar Jackson had one of the worst offensive line performances I think I've ever seen a quarterback have. But, he fumbles the ball late in the game.
Also, weren't they not even running their full offense?
No, they weren't running their full offense because
running backs.
They had to get a new running back. Like that, they got all their new running backs basically a week before that. They got to have their first reps running read option with Lamar Jackson, so they couldn't run their offense. Still go into overtime. The Bengals game, that was just an atrocious performance by not just Lamar. I mean, Lamar didn't play terribly. I didn't think he played very well. I thought he played pretty poorly, especially by this year's standards. But it was like, that was terrible by Marlon Humphrey. Jamar Chase went all over him. That was terrible by Patrick Queen and the linebackers. Like, when they're losing, it's not really because of Lamar. It's because Lamar wasn't the best player of the week. Is when they don't win, is when he isn't that top tier best, honestly playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. They don't win unless he plays like he's the best quarterback in the NFL. They don't. No other team, no other quarterback in the, you can say that for the Jets, I guess. They won't win unless their quarterback plays like the best quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, sure, Mike White, great player. But none of the other quarterbacks in the running for MVP, they don't go into the week and teams aren't saying, we only need to stop this guy. You don't play against the Rams and say, it's just Matthew Stafford. Stop Stafford. Stop Stafford. Because they have Darrell Henderson.
What about the Packers? I'm just asking. I'm just trying to.
No. The Packers are an interesting one. But even when you say the Packers, it's like, oh, stop Aaron Rodgers. Is it really stop Aaron Rodgers? Or is it stop Devontae Adams? Because Devontae Adams is so deadly. And then it's also, you got to stop the run game because Matt LaFleur has a great run scheme coming from, shout out to Kyle Shanahan. But
the man who everyone wants to fire.
Yes. But like that's the thing is like all those guys, let's see, Kyler Murray. You're looking at DeAndre Hopkins. You're looking at it's like yeah, it stopped Kyler. It stopped the whole passing game. It stopped the wide receivers that are ridiculous and things like that. The Raven and block Chandler Jones. And the Packers defense has been playing very, very well. The Ravens is literally Lamar Jackson. Teams don't go into that week and say like, oh man, Hollywood Brown. We really got to do everything. And I like Hollywood.
There's one team that did. The one team that clamped him. The Lions.
The Lions. Yeah, they absolutely
I don't think they clamped them, but
3 touchdown passes that would have combined for about 180 yards in 3 touchdowns.
You know that game will be used against his case for MVP.
Oh,
you know that, right?
Yeah.
But if you didn't watch the game, you wouldn't know that
he probably threw for another 115 yards and 3 more touchdowns.
Literally in those 3 plays.
3, and it wasn't like, oh, that would have been a tough catch. It was wide open drops.
And there were dots. They were dots. There was one that was like, there was 2 guys. There was a safety in a corner, like in pretty good spot, and he threw it like outside shoulder where the safety wouldn't have a play on it, and where only Hollywood would, and it was like right in his hands, and he dropped it. And it was like, dude, that was like a 60-yard dot. Like like not really on a rope because like he's throwing a 3-ball, but it's like as money as you can get on that throw.
Yeah, I mean the guy that you compare those types of throws to is like a Russell Wilson throw, except for some reason the Ravens have bricks for hands instead of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who always seem to catch those moon balls that he likes to throw. But like you look at that, but how much? So you're obviously not a Ravens fan. So, when I talk about Ravens players, like I'm so high on guys. I tell you about this and I'm like, dude, Marquise Brown, dude's an absolute monster. Draft him in fantasy. You're welcome. But like I'd hype up all these guys. Most people have really low perspective, especially coming into this year, of like Hollywood Brown. People didn't have high expectations for Sammy Watkins.
Dude, you know what I traded him for? Devontae Parker in a 3rd. In a dynasty league, it saved my season. Like that specific move, like that's how good their passing offense has been. And it's because of Lamar. It's not like Hollywood just came out like, oh, he's completely different.
Lamar's just hitting
improved. Him. Yeah, but Lamar's just been better. And it's not like Lamar's been bad. He's already won MVP. That's also why I think it hurts his chance. I really don't think he's going to get it. Like, I honestly don't even think he's going to finish super high. He has what? Let me see right now. I just looked at it. 13 touchdowns, 7 picks. There's no way. He only has 2 on the ground. But he has played like the best player in the league. That's what I think. And I think it doesn't get enough credit. I think their offense also is like, it's completely about him. They've faced so many injuries. They faced probably the most adversity in the league. You could bring up some other guys. I was going to say you could bring up Derek Carr. But I don't know. I think if he was to win it won't happen because the numbers, but like he's the guy if you don't have to bring up the numbers in the discussion, which unfortunately you do, even though it's not like.
You know what the MVP is going to come down to? If Lamar can win it. You know who he plays this year still? He's got 2 games against the Browns, which people are really high on the Browns. He plays the Packers, and he plays the Rams in Week 17. Those could be games like playing the Rams in Week 17. If he's putting up similar numbers, even if he doesn't have the touchdowns, I don't think it's as necessary to have the touchdowns because everybody knows that when they score, because they still have a good scoring offense, they're putting up points. The issue is they get down to the 1-yard line and it's, oh, let's punch it in with Latavius Murray or Le'Veon Bell or Devontae Freeman or whatever. Everybody knows it's Lamar. It's not like I think it's different with other teams like the Rams. If like Stafford didn't have a lot of touchdowns and it was Darrell Henderson punching it in and everyone's like, oh, but they have a good rushing attack. Everyone knows that the Ravens offense is passing, it's Lamar, and rushing, it's Lamar as well. Because no running back has had a single good game. But like they still play some really good football teams. Now they have a big Thursday night game against the Dolphins. The last 3 games the Ravens have played the Dolphins have been some of the most ridiculous performances ever. It's like they've outscored them by like 120 points in the last 3 games. But playing against the Browns in Sunday Night Football, and then the Rams in Week 17, I think those are going to be the crucial games. And then obviously the Packers just in like a Sunday standard game. Like, do you think that like knowing that they still have, because they also like their schedule is tough. People see the Bengals as a decent team. The Steelers, we knew before the year, underrated. We told everybody, bet the over for this team's win because they're going to get it. This is a really solid football team. Ravens still play them twice. Big time rivalry matchup that a lot of people key in to see. So, like, do you think, like, I don't know. It's just, for me, like, they have so many marquee games. Like, Lamar beat Mahomes. They changed the narrative. Like, it's all comebacks now. I mean, Lamar Jackson has 3 double-digit comeback wins this year, and it's all him. And I feel like, I know you said, like, you would give your vote to him, but, like, for him to win MVP. Yeah, I know. You said you would. I thought you said, but you don't think he's going to win it. For him to win it, what does he need to do? Win it by the league standards, not by your standards.
Yeah, like the league standards, he has to have a ton of touchdowns. And it's stupid. That shouldn't be how he wins it, but that's how I think he has to win it. And he has to have monster performances in those primetime spots. One thing I got to note, this is insane. So say it's not an extra game this year. Right now, I believe Lamar would still be able to be on pace to throw over 4,000 yards.
Yeah.
Because, he's on pace to throw for 4,400. So let's take off 300 yards, right? He would be on pace for over 1,000 yards more. His previous high, or around 1,000 yards, because his previous high is 3,100, which he had in his MVP year. Insane. Absolutely insane. That's like the Josh Allen jump of like 11% completion percentage. That's that level. That's
1,000-yard yardage bonus. And still rushing for 1,000 yards. Because that's the thing, is like, it's not like normally, like, if people expected Lamar to throw for 4,000 yards, I know some people did. They expected it to be because he wasn't running the ball more. He's running the ball more than he did in previous years, and he's throwing the ball better than he has in previous years. Like, that's the thing that, like, is so wild. And he's obviously a quarterback that is talked about constantly on national media. It's just about whether or not the narrative is good or bad, because it's a lot of times it seems bad. But final thing that I'm going to ask you about Lamar, then we'll move on. Stephen A. Smith came out today, and he was talking about the MVP, and he said it was Brady. Fine. He said Lamar can't win MVP because he struggled in too many moments this year.
Who said this?
Stephen A. Smith. I just want to see a reaction for that.
He doesn't watch, bro. He doesn't. There's no way that you would have watched Lamar and been like, yeah, man, he just struggled in these big moments. Wait a second. He's done the polar opposite. In fact, he's excelled more than any player in the biggest moments this season. I'm telling you, dude, and I know you know this, but there's legit not a better quarterback right now in a 4-minute offense. And Tom Brady plays in the NFL right now. And I haven't seen Lamar like not score in a 4-minute offense unless there's a turnover. And like if there's a turnover, it's like a fumble. It's not even like he's throwing a pick.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it in the first half, but it's like, I threw 2 picks in the first half, and I don't think he's had a game like that. But like,
I think it was against the Chiefs that happened.
It was against the Chiefs. Yeah, and then he goes out.
And then what happened in the second half? He went crazy.
Let's turn on real quick. I'm going to score every single time in 4 minutes. And if my defense gets 1 turnover, we come back from a 14-point deficit. Look at that.
Every single time. All right, let's move on from Lamar Jackson and the MVP. Sorry, guys, if you didn't want to listen to that, but me being a Ravens fan, last week we talked about Kyle Shanahan for the first 20 minutes, not being the Niners fan. But let's talk about something. We talked about this before we started recording. Defense in the NFL. Defense, not just in the NFL, defense in football. Because it's very clear that defense is getting harder and harder every single year. What is going on with that? Why is it? Is it schemes? Is it rule changes? Is it player personalities? Are they just figuring out what defenses are doing? Why is it that or what's the deal with just like this whole situation between defense and offense? Because it used to be championships are won by defenses. Doesn't seem like that's the case nearly as much anymore.
It doesn't, and it's kind of weird that football is like that now. Even in our lifetime, we're pretty young, but we've seen it where like you can't go across the middle as a small receiver unless you get drilled. And I'm not going to get super into going across the middle because when we were talking about this earlier, you brought up some great points that I think that should be the focal point of that stuff. But there's a couple other factors I do think. One, this is kind of a weird thing to bring up, but what positions do you guys think people want to play when they're kids? They want to play wide receiver and they want to play quarterback. And passing leads are more tailor-made for that. If you're the better player, like if you're like not the better player, not always, but I think more often than not, you're going to have guys end up playing wide receiver over corner. Like just naturally, like people want to play those spots. And so you've seen the passing offenses get so much more lethal. You've seen these crazy athletic kids start playing quarterback and really developing like a great mindset for the position and being coached up at a young age. And now it's like, okay, look, you have these ridiculous athletes all across the board at quarterback. It wasn't really like that when we were younger. It's weird to think, but it was not like that. Like
that's a great point.
The quarterback position is almost like, and it's not like exclusive. It's not like you have to be a dual threat player, but so many more offenses now are more focused around having a dual threat quarterback. And the high ends of those offenses, I think, are better. Doesn't mean you can't go win with a Mac Jones or whatnot, because look how great he's played this year. He's been the best rookie quarterback in terms of his performance. Now, let's look at that in 3 years. I would be very surprised if it still looks like he's the best one, like because you have a couple guys in Justin Fields and Trey Lance that are tremendous dual threat options. And once they catch up in how they see the field, it's going to, I think, that's what really helps. I think also is just better coaching. The rule changes, like not just going across the middle, but like you can't put your hands on receivers as much. And it's made it just become so much more of an offensive focused game.
I want to talk about the rule changes really quickly because I have another rule change. Taunting. Celebrations. Because there's a certain man that made a particular position very popular. Everyone used to know him as Neon, Deion Sanders. Corner was not a position people looked to play until Deion made it fun. And he was high-stepping. He was getting the interceptions. He's returning the kicks. And, Matt, you talked about guys don't want to play those positions. You don't want to play the positions because they can't celebrate. We saw that one of the worst taunting penalties I've ever seen in my entire life on Monday Night Football last night. I don't even know what he did. I mean, then the ref hip checks him. Like, I don't know what happened there. That was just stupid. But, like, guys can't celebrate. And when you can't celebrate unless you're scoring a touchdown, you're going to want to be the guy that scores the touchdowns.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Yeah, Antoine Winfield.
Playing receiver.
Antoine Winfield, I can't remember if he knocks the ball out of Tyreek Hill's hands or Tyreek drops it. What does he do? Pops a squat, hits him with the peace sign. And they're like, no, you can't do that. In the NBA, there were so many great celebrations. I just did the Mutombo finger wag. Like, celebrations are a key thing in sports. And if you can't celebrate, it's not going to be as fun because when you're a kid playing on the playground, playing at recess, playing in the field, going out with your buddies, you want to be the guy dancing. You want to be the guy celebrating, talking the trash. And we don't get to see the trash talking anything like that. I love Jalen Ramsey, great player. But unless he was mic'd up every game.
Dude, he almost got ejected last night.
He did.
And he didn't really even do anything.
Yeah, I know. That's what's so crazy. It's like playing defense. Like, there's other things that we can bring up, but like it's just not like it doesn't seem as fun as it used to be because they're just not allowed to have the leeway in terms of celebrations and things like that. And also that goes for other positions. Positions like running back, positions like wide receiver, linebacker, like everybody just wants to be the quarterback. And we can look at a guy that wanted to be a wide receiver. Really good wide receiver prospect, went to the University of Alabama to be a wide receiver. Nick Saban says, hey, bud, I know you're pretty good. I need you at cornerback. That guy's got 7 interceptions this year. His name's Trayvon Diggs. Okay. Because he realized, he was like, We got Jerry Jeudy. We got Henry Ruggs. We've got all these receivers. He's like, this guy can play DB. Maybe 20 years ago, that guy was Trayvon Diggs was raised as a DB. Maybe he's raised as a safety. But all these guys want to play these flashy positions and things like that, and it takes them a lot more time. The Baltimore Ravens drafted a guy this year. He's playing safety. His name's Brandon Stevens. Brandon Stevens was a running back at UCLA. Then he was like, I'm not really getting snaps at running back. Let me just try and play corner at SMU. And then he gets drafted as a safety. Like, these guys are coming in with no player positioning experience. Nobody wants to play fullback in the NFL. Nobody wants to play fullback, period. Patrick Ricard comes in as a defensive tackle. And then they're like, hey, bud, can you play this other position that you have zero experience playing? He's like, I mean, I guess. Like, these guys are having to play different positions, and they're having to switch. Landon Collins had to switch from safety to linebacker this year. Isaiah Simmons kind of plays everywhere. Like, all these guys are athletes, and they're not playing particular positions. And it's making it harder for defense because nobody wants to play defense. But I don't know. Do you have anything to add on to like that area of things?
I just want to talk about some coaching stuff, but
yeah,
talk about the other rule change, and then
the other rule change
that matters a lot.
This one comes from Tom Brady because he talks about why it's easier to play in the NFL this year and currently is because there's no Ray Lewis's, or maybe there's a Ray Lewis, but they can't be Ray Lewis. They can't be Sean Taylor. They can't be the guys where if you knew, Tom Brady said, I wasn't going to throw over the middle if I'm playing the Ravens. Why? Because my receiver is going to walk out with a broken back. They're going to have a broken collarbone. They're getting carted out because you throw it over the middle and Ray Lewis is going to pop them. You throw it down into the flats, Sean Taylor is going to ruin that man's career. No longer, Tom Brady says, hey, when I see a guy, and I got, oh, yeah, maybe we'll bring up players that he has right now. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I see him running, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there he goes. And there's a safety, no matter who it is, even if it's a heavy hitter, like a Jamal Adams, let's say. He'll still throw it at Mike Evans. Why? Because Jamal Adams or whatever the safety is, Isaiah Simmons, they're not allowed to drop the shoulder and make the guy fall asleep. They can't do that. And because they can't do that, he now has the freedom to throw to anybody because you used to not be able to throw to those guys, even if they were open, because when they caught the ball, they were going to get hurt. Hospital passes were a phrase because you threw it to the guy. Yeah, he could have caught it, but he was going to end up in the hospital if he did catch it. There are no hospital passes anymore because if you put the guy in the hospital,
there's some
you're never playing football again. No, there's some bad hospital passes.
Jimmy Garoppolo routinely throws high balls across the middle. If you throw a high ball, then you'll have a torn knee. So there's that.
Yeah, it's just
if you throw an accurate pass, no one's head's getting taken off across the middle. And if they are, it's going to be like
the defensive players never playing again.
Yeah. It's not like, and so it feels like it's reduced every single season that you see that. Yeah, and I feel like it's made it a lot harder on defenses. You see that defense is becoming a lot more of like a reaction based like play calling now, just because what are you going to do? You're going to try to like always be, you're going to always be like, I don't know how to explain it. Like almost just looking at where like the guys are on offense and trying to like get ahead. Like you're not going to get ahead in terms of defensive play calling. If an offense is coming out there showing a certain receiver set, you have to go put a number of guys there. You can't just go try to put a linebacker on a slot receiver who can get across the middle. And he has such an advantage now at getting open on that linebacker, where before you'd say, okay, do that. Try to come across the middle. We'll switch them off, and I'm going to have my linebacker sit in the middle of the field. And when you come across the middle, you're going to get your head taken off. No, now linebackers have to go man up. That's why Fred Warner, Eric Kendricks, some of these guys that are good in pass coverage are so valuable now. But they're still like, you're not going to see Fred Warner go across the middle and hit someone like Patrick Willis is. That's a good example because I've watched both these players.
Yeah.
You don't see that. That's not a thing anymore. So I think that's one of the biggest ways that it's kind of put like coaching in like, all right, you have to take a step back. Like, all right, how do we adjust? Like we have to completely adjust the sport. And maybe we'll see that. Maybe it won't be as much of like a reaction of like, you have to do exactly what the offense is kind of like predicating that you have to do. Like they're kind of showing like whatever they show, you have to go match that. I don't know. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, it's really tough, but I think that's going to do it for this stream. Thank you everybody for coming into the stream and things like that. I know we had a couple people popping in there. We don't do it for the live viewers or anything like that. We just do it because doing it live is a lot more fun because we feel like sometimes people bring up good points. But thank you everybody. Subscribe for more current football content, these type of streams and everything like that. And if you're coming in late, then go check out the segments. They'll be up tomorrow and things like that. But thank you everybody for coming in, and we'll see all of you again next time.